Pawns are definitely the most underrated piece in chess, and they are sometimes the most powerful in a way, but they're only powerful when they're together. So pawns, how I describe it to my students, are like ants. Ants alone individually aren't strong, but together as a colony, they could move mountains, right? They're very, very strong. So you want to keep your pawns together. And in this video, I'm going to show you and demonstrate that in this game I played online against a 1900. So here I take towards the center. I'm keeping my pawns together. Some of you might be saying, oh, look, the pawns are doubled. Well, I go over this a lot. The pawns are actually okay like this. It's only bad if this pawn wasn't here and they're doubled and isolated. And that's, again, to my point of keeping the pawns together. So we keep them together by keeping them a one island. So they're all connected. So this pawn is connected to this pawn, this pawn, this pawn. The only pawn that's isolated here is my A pawn. So now we have a few developing moves. Now I play F6. Now there's a big difference. Now you have to make a pawn break here because you don't want to leave this pawn here. But there's a big difference between F6 and D6. So F6 is good, D6 is losing because after this trade, our pawns are now legitimately messed up. These double isolated pawns are very weak. And guess what? White is going to start attacking it immediately, and White's going to win these pawns. And not only that, like we're just really not, our pawns are not together. They're weak. They're not controlling a lot of squares. And White is going to, if they play correctly at least, is going to win the game. They should. So F6 is completely different because F6, let's say if he took over here, we just take and our pawns are connected. These are all connected. The central pawns are connected. And if you really want all your pawns, more pawns connected, you could take like this, but that's a little unnecessary. It's fine, but you don't need to. So taking like this keeps all these pawns together in the center. Okay? So he didn't take, though. He just played knight e4, which is a tricky move. So again, if we played something like this, that would be losing because we take, and let's just say after takes, our pawns are messed up, and we don't have a great position here. In fact, this actually might be even stronger move, just attacking this pawn, this weak pawn, right off the bat. That's actually definitely even more powerful, and my opponent's going to win this pawn and probably this pawn. So for that reason, we don't do that. We want to keep all the pawns together. So here I just took, after my opponent took back, now I play D6 because now you can't take this because I have too much control over it. You will just lose a piece here. He doesn't have a pawn there anymore. So he moves back to B2. And after this, I just play A5 just to shut down queenside counterplay. I have a bind here. But after this move, it's funny. I'm already winning the game according to the computer. And that's because of my powerful pawn center. So this is like a really extreme example of why it's good to have a pawn center. My opponent has no pawns in the center, and I have 4. Now, I haven't pushed them all yet, but they're all together and they're ready to steamroll my opponent. So I play E5 here. Now, E5 blunts this bishop. It stops my opponent from playing D4 because now I have a bind here. So a bind is when 2 pawns control the square. If they come here now, it's just completely, it's nonsense. I just win a free pawn. So it stops my opponent from, I'm taking more space in the center, but I'm also stopping my opponent from playing in the center as well. So what we want to do in chess, we also want to stop our opponent from doing. So my opponent plays, that's what forces my opponent to play D3 instead, which is a concession. But now I just play bishop G4, and already my opponent is not going to be able to stop my attack because I have such good control of the center with my pawns together. My opponent's going to have trouble, formulating some type of defense or attack with his pieces and finding any harmony with his pieces because everything, his structure is very awkward. My opponent comes back here, but I play bishop G5 here. Bishop G5 is a strong move because I want to actually chop off this knight and break open my opponent's fortress, and there's really no way to stop that at this point. My opponent tries to. Now, I don't take like this and help my opponent get back into the game. I actually took this knight here. Now, taking this knight is actually the best move, and you can't take with this knight because you'll lose the queen. And so my opponent took with the queen, but now since the queen is no longer defending f3, that was the point of that move, now I simply take. He has to take back or he's down a piece, and now I win a pawn. Not only that, but more importantly, his king is suffering right now. He has no protection for his king. He tries to get the rook into the game, and here I just bring my knight to f4. You'll hear me a lot of times say the knight is really strong in f4. It certainly is. In fact, I think that's why my opponent played this to block, because if they don't, there's always this tactic right here, which this leads to mate anyway, but when the queen's not defended, you could, find really good, tactics on this undefended queen sometimes with this move. But my opponent, my opponent played e3, and then I just came in here and delivered checkmate, which was all possible because of my pawn center, which gave me a way better position, and my opponent could not really move his pieces around in a harmonious manner, which led to his demise. Anyway, hopefully you found that video helpful and instructive. If you did, check out this one. I'll catch you guys next time. Go play some chess.